Community Police Oversight Commission to order.
Yes, let's do
Roll
roll
call.
call. David Santa Croce. Commissioner El Khalili.
Present.
Second. Commissioner Walton. Commissioner Evans.
Present.
Commissioner Oppman.
Present.
Commissioner Caldwell.
Present.
Commissioner Hargraves. Tadoro Hargraves, please.
Here.
Commissioner Mary.
Yes. Here.
Commissioner Billups.
Here.
Liaisons. Councilmember Ramwali.
Here.
Councilmember Lum. No. We have a quorum.
Jude emailed that. Jude's in London. Okay, so, the draft of the August minutes is in the packet.
Well,
We did not have-
I'm sorry, you'll have to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Wait, I'm not there yet.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
It's fine. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, the draft of the August minutes is in the packet. Do you have one?
Who doesn't have one?
Okay.
Let me jab mine.
You need a copy?
Oh, no, I have them. Thank you.
Yeah, we should do that too. So we'll just, what I was gonna say is, so start checking that to see if there are errors, and then we have time for public comment. So if there's anyone who would like to make a public comment at this time, please come forward.
Thank you for your outreach session at the Westgate Library. That was really awesome. And also for your report at City Council, which I thought was great too. I just had one point I wanted to make. I met Chief Cox at a event like in the community a month or so ago. And my name is Libby Hunter and I live in Ann Arbor. And so I had a chat with him, and I was happy to hear that he supports finding appropriate programs for people with mental illness and addictions, you know, rather than, if possible, forcing them into the criminal justice system. So he was a supporter of that. I was happy to hear. Since that conversation, I've wondered about what programs do exist in our city and county. I know about the drug court. I've heard about other programs too, which I can't list right now, but and I've wondered how effective they are. I'm no expert in this. I'm sure people here know more than I do. But mostly I've wondered what's the process that takes place for a person to actually get the help they need. Like, what happens from the point when there's the initial contact between police and a citizen? How is it determined the kind of action that should be taken? Are people jailed while waiting for this decision? And like, what are all the steps that take place, you know, before somebody is either put in jail or put into some sort of program? Also, is there often a difference between the official process and what actually happens? Maybe a study could be done on all this. Maybe one has already been done that I don't know about. But not just from the point of view of the police and sheriff departments and the courts, but also from people running the various programs and especially from citizens who have experienced this process. So my basic concern is from the point of contact, the initial contact with police, what are all the steps? What happens? And what should happen? And then also, my last little point is there's a awesome DA that was elected in Suffolk County, Massachusetts, Rachel Rollins, and she has this great article. I really recommend it. It's short, and it's from an awesome website called The Appeal. And I can go to your website and I can email everybody this article. I'll try to do that when I get home. But one tiny little sentence, she says, the most effective way to address most problematic behaviors is to treat people humanely and help them to heal. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You said you'd like to? You actually, that is legal for you to do.
I just would like to comment on what you had said. They have, at the sheriff office, they have program to handle and deal with the issues that you had raised. If you would like to, I would bring contact information for you, so you can.
I can't hear you.
What I said is,
You mean the
what you
police
had
department?
mentioned over here is there is program on the county level that deals with these issues, helping people with mental health and issues related to any kind of support in the community and all these things. So there is something in place. We don't hear about it over here because we live in Ann Arbor, but as a county, and if you are part of that, if you access the county, there is a great deal of emphasis on the issue of mental health and how to deal with people in a humane way.
Any other public comments?
Hi. I would like to first say I watched the city council meeting, I think a week ago, and you all gave your report, and I thought it was really a great report. And I'm so glad that you went to the conference and that you learned what you learned and that you can share with us the things that you did learn. It gives me hope as someone from the community that this committee is going to do all that they can possibly do, even with all the obstacles in your way, to try and make this work as we in the community would like it to work. But I missed part of Libby's speech, so I don't know what all she said. But one of the things I want to ask is, I do know about the drug court. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I did talk to, I can't remember that judge's name.
Valvo?
What's her name?
Judge Valvo.
Valvo. Yeah. My understanding is that if a person needs help, such as an addiction problem, that they have to be willing to go to the drug court. It isn't something the judge can just order. And so I'm not sure about all that, and I think we being this group, we need to be sure, is that something that, because some people aren't accepting that they have an addiction problem, and so they don't choose to go to the drug court, and so they don't get the help that they need to get. So we need to figure out a way that we can help the people that need the help, such as housing. You can't get housing if you have a drug addiction problem. That process, and I know this firsthand, that process is, if you're someone that uses, then you have a hard time getting housing unless you're a veteran. So I think it's really a good thing that maybe we, I don't know, maybe a subcommittee or something can break off and find out just what all that entails. so that we can help the people that need help, that are addicts, get housing, because I think it's important that they get housing and then deal with their drug addiction situation. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, so I know you all to be judicious minute readers. Having reviewed the packets, the minutes, the draft of the minutes from August, can you please let me know if you have found any errors that need to be corrected?
Just, Chair, just, sorry to be, someone has to move it and second it, and then it can be discussed. So just ask for someone to move it. It's just
Okay, is there a motion to review the minutes?
to move it, and then it's seconded, and then it's discussed.
I second.
So moved, is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, all in favor?
No,
Yeah,
you don't need to do that now, you can discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, having said that, thank you, Jane.
Sorry, don't mean to.
No worries,
it's
we
just
we
like
just wanna make sure we
parliamentary
move on.
procedure.
Do you guys find any errors or anything that needs to be corrected?
No.
You guys could steal those chairs.
We're here with the day, so is it okay if we walk around and take pictures? And if you don't want your picture taken, just like put your hands in your face or something and we won't take your picture.
Errors, corrections.
Madam Chair, I understand there is a motion on the floor, but personal privilege, is there anyone who can share with us as far as taking the pictures? I know we're publicly live recorded, but that's no breach of protocol in regards to our meetings, is it? Or our commission?
Just kind
Just wanna be clear.
I'll just say it's an unusual request, but yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, when we're at council meetings, for example, you know, Brian Stanton will be there snapping pictures, but, you know, the meeting's going, yeah, no official requests are made, it just happens, so.
Okay.
Yes, they notified and asked if they could attend.
Awesome.
I don't see any changes.
So as I understand it then, okay, so you all have, no one has any corrections to the minutes from August?
So you just take a vote to accept.
Yeah, so, all in favor of accepting the minutes as distributed?
Commissioner Jack?
Yes, you did
Okay.
find one.
I don't think it's necessarily an error. It's what we were discussing previously. It said that the committee will present a plan on how to succeed for the next meeting regarding the logo, but we're not presenting a plan yet.
But it was discussed.
Right, it was discussed, but we just wanted to get.
So
an idea
what
we
you
have a
wanna do is
plan.
just make sure that the minutes reflect what actually happened in that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is
It's
correct
not a
that they
big
did
deal.
do that.
Hmm?
That is correct that we said that at that time, so even if we don't do
Even
it
though
in
it's
the
changed
future,
now.
Gotcha.
The minutes are right.
It
The minutes are
reflects
right.
what was
So that's
discussed at
just-
the meeting. It reflects, this is just a record of what was discussed
Right,
at the
right.
meeting.
Was it said that we would have that? It doesn't.
Okay, so I think that, we were going to,
Vote.
Vote.
on whether the minutes stand as distributed. If there are no corrections, in fact. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So because the chair left after our August meeting, as vice chair, I've been serving as interim chair. We do need to do elections by roll call, however, to determine a new chair. And we should do that. No one else has volunteered to serve as chair. So Denise will do a roll call.
Okay.
to determine whether you all will elect me as chair.
Okay. So Commissioner Lisa Jackson is a candidate for chair. I'm going to go around. Commissioner Altman,
Yes.
Commissioner Alkalali,
Yes.
Commissioner Billups,
Yes?
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Caldwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Todoro,
Yes.
Commissioner Ameri.
Yes.
Okay. Am I missing anyone? Okay. Then unanimous. You are chair.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Let me make sure I can see that.
So since I have vacated the vice chair position now, now we need to have an election to determine who our next vice chair will be. 3 people put their hats in the ring.
Yes.
Only 2 of whom are here. And if appropriate, would you guys like to say anything before we take a vote? David Santa Croce indicated that he would like to be vice chair.
Yes.
Frances Todoro Hargraves indicated that she would like to be vice chair, as did Muhammad Othman. In the order in which you guys put your hats in the ring, I think you were second and you were third.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it matters. Would you like to say anything?
Muhammad Othman. My experience with conducting meetings and all these things, I have been a member of a board of school for the past 12, 13 years. I was also president of the Arab American Organization for 2 years and the chairman of the board of trustees of the Muslim Community Association for 4 years. I think I have a little bit of experience with running meetings and some of the rules that control meetings. I like to be of the idea of consensus builder, present an issue and hear from the members, and then make a decision that would probably use some of the input from all members. If I'm elected, I'm fine. If not, again, this is not an issue of personality. It's an issue of serving, and no matter who is going to be elected, we'll have the support of all of us.
My experience with city boards and commissions goes back to when I actually worked here at City Hall in the mayor's office. At that time, the city boards and commissions were actually run out of the mayor's office. In recent years, they've been run out of the clerk's office, but way back when, many moons ago, they were run out of the mayor's office. So I have a lot of experience and background in how the city boards and commissions function here within this building, along with other city commissions and how they can work together and so on. But my interest in being a vice chair came after completing the NACOL training for the week at the conference in Detroit. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend every day of the 5 days, and I met a lot of great people from all around the country, got invitations to go to cities like Chicago for hands-on experience and education, met other groups here in Michigan to form collaborations throughout the state of Michigan with groups like ours. So that kind of raised my interest to be able to spend more time working with the group and building those relationships and working towards the success of the commission itself. But again, I agree with Commissioner Othman that whoever gets it, we're all going to continue to do our work to make this commission a success. Absolutely.
Okay. We're gonna take a roll call vote.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
For the parliamentary procedure, in the context of these types of settings, when it's a voting for a person, are we saying yea and nay against an individual, or do we call the name of the vice chair that we'd like to have serve? Because I know in the context of when we had the first election with Robin, it was, I left a little bit confused as far as how the voice vote should go, because I believe when the name was read, the first individual's name was read, and then there was a question, yea or nay for that individual, which I think in the context of parliamentary procedure creates almost prejudicial as you kind of go down the line.
Yes.
Whether you vote for a person, yea or nay, but, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, in the context of parliamentary procedure, it is, when it's voting between persons, it is to voice the name of the person that you would like to serve for that particular position.
Correct. And that takes out the bias of the order. Absolutely. So as we go around, we should say the name of the person.
I just wanted to know for clarity how that has worked in other commissions and how we operate in them.
Okay, all the boards and commissions I've served on, never done this, and, except for this group. And when I've served on other boards and commissions, we've done it by a paper ballot. And I know initially we did that, and then I believe Commissioner Santa Croce, he also shared that at PAC, he's chaired the Parks Advisory Commission for a few years. They also elected their officers by paper ballot. And I don't know that there's, Robert's rules per se about.
There is. And it suggests that when you have two people, you should do it in this way.
No, but whether it's paper ballot or by voice vote, I don't believe there's a parliamentary rule about that.
We can do paper.
And I think, last time when we went through this, when we elected Ms. Stevens as chair, I'm not a voting member, so it's not awkward for me personally, but it is awkward for everyone because you don't want to, vote against one of your colleagues. And so I think people appreciate the opportunity to just do it privately by paper ballot. So I just my thoughts, because again, I don't think there's a Roberts rule about paper versus doing it, orally. It's up to the group, obviously.
I'll, agree with my colleague there. Just it gives. I think the commission will be better for the commission.
Yeah.
Well, you know what'd be great? Commissioners, do you guys have a preference? Since you are voting paper ballot?
Madam Chair, I'd like to place that in the form of a motion that we, for this particular election, that would be a paper ballot.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor of doing a paper ballot?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I got paper, I can rip up.
Paper it is.
Okay,
Should I rip up some paper?
yes,
Yeah.
I can go get paper.
Okay.
You don't have
Are
it.
you okay with that?
We good? Do you need me to go
You're
get
right.
paper?
Jane's got paper right here.
Okay.
I always have paper.
She's gonna,
Let's see. So you can fold that in half, 1, 2, 3. And so you only need 2 there.
Yep.
We are the
Yeah.
epitome of
3,
resourcefulness.
4. Okay.
1, 2,
You-
3.
Can you pass paper out?
4.
You all have a sheet, a little slip of paper? Mohammed, you need one.
I do one, thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
What is that?
Here, it's fancy. I know.
The pinnacle of technology.
Old
I need
tech.
one more.
One more? Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody have a piece of paper.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks.
Does everyone have a sheet of paper?
I'm gonna pass it to
Yeah.
Denise.
Please.
I'll give it to Denise since I'm a
Okay.
non-voting member.
All right.
I won't peek.
I can go around the table.
Thank you. This side.
Thank you.
You need Mohammed's.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
No, you're doing well. You're not talking too much.
Reverend Evans, thank you. It's just, good folks like you make me realize I need to go to church.
Our new vice chair is Francis Tadoro Hargraves.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so having established that, and thank you for introducing the paper ballots. That seems better on so many levels. So the next item on our agenda is the city council update, which is basically me, a couple of things, just to bring everybody up to speed. Several of us came to the October 7th city council meeting and gave a report as to what we had done since our inception. Many of you were there. And we talked about our training and our goals, and we reported out on our mission. In addition to that, and so this will be perhaps a periodic appearance at City Council. We understand that perhaps the City Council does not want to be entertained by reports from all of its boards and commissions.
You're special.
But we understand that it is a best practice for us to go and report out to City Council periodically. This is was our first time doing so we thought it was important to do that and to talk about going to NACOL and some of the things that we learned, but also to talk about the things that we've done, because we had never reported to City Council before. So having gotten up and running on having a mission and a vision, as well as outreach, which is a huge part of what we need to be doing. And so we just reported out on that. Tagging on to that, however.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I know it's been said in the public comment, but allow me, as one of the commissioners, to thank you for the way in which you represented this commission so well.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. I didn't know if you were going to turn up at the city meeting or not, but you,
Turn up or turn out?
You represented us extraordinarily well. And
You
we
hit
want to
it
thank
out of
you
the
for that
park.
leadership.
Thank you.
It was outstanding, yeah, and I know, yeah.
I got notes from lots of people, so it was a group effort, and I tried to stick to the notes, so I felt like I was reading at City Council, which was not the best, and for that I apologize.
No, it was.
But we had some points that we wanted to make and make sure that everybody heard them, so I wanted to make sure we got them all in.
Yeah, it was, no,
thank you.
it was outstanding, and how about it?
Yeah, I mean, for the audience, council members, I mean, I think everybody, was impressed.
Yes,
And,
without question.
And the content and how you delivered it, was pretty flawless.
Thank you. There was a lot of help, lots of input from different people talking about things that we should talk about, so I'm so grateful to everybody and everybody who showed up, and
Yeah,
everybody who watched.
that was very
support.
nice.
I was cheering
Thank
you on
you.
from the TV.
Thank you. To tag on to that, something new for us, but not new for City Council, is every board and commission issues a policy agenda for each fiscal year, and we will need to do one for the next fiscal year as well. So I'll be emailing you guys an example of what all the other boards and commissions did for fiscal year 20, and then asking for your feedback on that so that we can pull some together. We should do so fairly quickly, so I'll send that out and ask that everybody report back in a couple weeks. I'll cull them together so that everybody can look at them, and we could perhaps have a discussion about what some of our priorities might be.
To that, if I may just add, I'm one of the council members who serves on the Council Policy Agenda Committee, and what we do, we review ongoing legislation at the state and federal level, but primarily at the state level. And because council, we receive regular updates from our consultant in Lansing about House bills and Senate bills.
Bless you.
And the Policy Agenda Committee was created a year ago to be a filter, really, for all of this. all of these legislative updates that come to us on a daily basis, really, and when they're in session. So, and this has been very helpful because rather than have, council member X, Y, and Z send maybe a follow-up note to the city administrator saying, are we looking at this, that, or whatever, we now have this council, it's just a council committee. I serve on it, Councilmember Smith from the 5th Ward, Councilmember Eaton from the 4th Ward, Councilmember Griswold, also from the 2nd Ward, like me, and Councilmember Hayner. And the city administrator and the assistant city administrator, John Fournier, service this committee, support this committee. So what we do, and I had a couple of these today, from our consultant, when we hear about pending bills, if we think, the kinds of things that are consistent with our city policy agenda that we approve annually, then we recommend advocating for Bill X, Y, and Z. We make this recommendation to City Council, and then typically that's followed by a letter to our legislators and sometimes, our congressional representatives, if appropriate. Actually, I brought an example. I don't know if we're going to get into this later, but happened to get one today. Rarely, quite frankly, is there anything in terms of a bill related to policing, but there was one that coincidentally popped up today. It's a Senate bill, and I just made copies for you to show you an example of the kinds of things that then this policy agenda committee of council would look at and say, hey, is this something we should weigh in on? And that would generate, an advocacy letter. So I don't know if you want to do that later. I can just pass this around as an example when we get to it, or.
Yeah, you know what? If you email it to Denise, you
Okay,
have
I can do it.
digital?
I printed these for
Okay.
everybody, so it's
That'd be great.
it's a short one. It's too,
Okay.
otherwise I wouldn't have printed it.
Yeah, that's great. And then if you email it to Denise, she can get it out, and that way we'll all have it electronically as well.
Okay, so this is a pending bill that was just presented. So 1, 2, 3. I made 10 copies. I don't know if that's
Okay.
Okay, so next item on the agenda, some of these are pretty brief. The Human Rights Commission, thank you. There is some overlap with what the Human Rights Commission does and with what we do. Some of what we do is what the Human Rights Commission sort of needs to cede to us. And so we will be collaborating with them on a couple of issues. And I just wanted to sort of mention it now, something we can ponder whether in the future we might want to have even a joint commission meeting with them at some point. And so we can talk about that, but I just want to bring that up because they have addressed certain items that we'll be taking on, and they certainly were instrumental in our formation, obviously. From the inception of the idea of having an oversight commission, and so there is some natural sort of collaboration there, and we will be doing that sort of content-wise, as well as if you all are interested, if you think it useful, let's ponder whether we might have a joint meeting with them. It's not something we have to decide or act on at this time, but I wanted to put that out there. Also wanted to note that everybody has new city email accounts. Everyone has not logged into theirs yet.
I haven't.
Yes, I have not either. Denise has, however, sent us, she might need to send us again, has sent us the directions for logging into them, because they are complicated. Your city email password needs to be about 15 or 20 words long and has to have lots of things in it. And if you don't meet the requirements, you can't set it up. So that's one piece of it.
You have to change it periodically.
And it needs to be changed regularly, every 90 days. So that'll be fun. However,
working for the CIA. Why is it so complicated?
right.
And if you're an
But
employee.
I also want to bring up a theoretical point about city emails. So the city emails belong to the city.
Okay.
And they may make it easy for people to get in touch with us because everybody's email will be at a2.gov. However, there are people who may not feel comfortable using the city email because the email belongs to the city. So there may be constituents or community members who are leery of the fact that all email is stored on city email servers and is subject to be reviewed by whatever city email policies are. And so that is the thing that we need to consider. Zainab, I know you had a question.
Yeah, would we be able to receive assistance setting it up? Because
Can you speak a bit
yeah,
louder?
I attempted it and had great difficulty.
And there we can, I know you had a,
I actually
too.
did ask, I got it set up, but I did ask an IT person. First, I called for assistance.
Okay.
And then I work closely with someone in IT on other things with regard to the art fair. And I took about 5 minutes of his time and he helped me like get it on my phone and all of that stuff. So we do need assistance. It's not easy.
Just email me and let me know. If no one has said, you know, they needed any assistance, but I can set that time up and someone can.
and talk us
Right.
through it.
Talk you through it.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
not
I
you make
do.
a video out of that?
Can't you do that?
I tried for about 45 minutes and said,
Okay,
forget
so
it.
You can
You
email
know,
me and I
okay.
can, you know.
Or
have a
we
short
can
conference
just,
call.
everyone call you at a
Yeah.
certain time and have you talk us through
And I
it.
can talk you through
So
it.
it's complicated. So they are there and they are available to everyone. And so I just want to think about how they'll be used. For example, there are a number of documents we have where we're putting out contact information. Are we gonna use city email contact information on those pieces of information? Are we gonna use the Gmail ones? Will we have both? And those are things that we'll have to talk about in the future. We'll probably have to set the email up first before we talk about it, because we haven't even done that yet. But just for, we will think about that as well. So I wanted you guys to start thinking about that, what that means to have city email.
Is
So
there-
there's some convenience factors.
Madam Chair, I'm
Well,
sorry.
is there a problem if we want to communicate related to this work of the commission using our own email?
Like using the Gmail that you set up for this.
My
There is
email.
no problem with that, except anything that we do that's deliberative or involves all of us, for example, is always subject to FOIA, which is no problem. It just means that if you, and usually FOIA requests are pretty specific. They want it, so the Freedom of Information Act.
Okay, for you, okay.
People probably wouldn't try to FOIA your birthday emails to someone else. They're usually specific to information about this committee. So anything we do as a deliberative body that way is subject no matter what email we use. So really, there were some concerns about email servers and things like that. So I don't think there's a problem with doing it either way or both ways.
The other thing I was going to ask, it's not about the email, but it's kind of related to the email.
Wait, hold on one sec, because you were gonna say something
Yeah.
about email.
I'm
So-
sorry.
No, it's okay, and then branch off.
Is it mandatory that we use the city email? It's not.
No.
So, okay, it's
your
our
choice.
option to
Optional.
It's your option.
do
yes.
whichever one. Okay.
And we should definitely let DeAndre know our preferences as he prints materials, so he will know which email address to use. So everybody definitely communicate with him and let him know, because he is making and has made these crazy amazing brochures, which I know he will share with us. And then Anan.
You know, it's nice to have like a business card, unified business card, because when we go talk to people about the commission, like I went to the Bryant Community Center about this commission meeting, outreach meeting we're having, and it's nice to introduce yourself, have a card. Also the brochures, we really need to finalize them. Because you go there, meet with people, say we want, to have meeting at your center, here who we are, this is the brochure about the commission. It's just like, faith is good, but like it might sometime not work all the time. We're so far with the Bryant Center have been very cooperative, and but it would be nice if we.
I think
can
we
do
found
that.
that too at the conference. I was constantly scribbling my
Or you give your personal.
ICPOC email on the back of my
Right.
other business cards and handing them out all the time. So that would be nice, particularly in terms of what we do, where we're asking people to contact us if they have questions. It'd be nice to be able to do that in a professional way. So agreed, and we will definitely get to that point, and hopefully that will not be very far off. Hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. Any other thoughts on email before we move on to the next thing?
I probably would think that using the city email that's going to be set, this is a good thing for this commission. I know we could use our own email, but I think in terms of security, if something happens to your email and all these things, and we might have privileged information, my opinion is probably have it in one place as a city would be a little bit more immune to maybe hacking or something like that. Just from that sense.
I think it's the other bit.
If it's going to be hacked,
Yeah, we'll have to talk to the city about.
if it's going to be hacked by the city stuff is going to be hacked, that's their problem. They need to do
And we see
better.
municipalities getting targeted more and more and getting hijacked. I don't think anybody would care about our emails though, so they probably don't hijack ours. There was a suggestion that that the community does not know us, and they're certainly getting to know us, and DeAndre is putting us on the path to that as all of you as ambassadors wherever we go. But we got a suggestion that perhaps we should make an introduction video. That perhaps we should just say a couple seconds of who we are. And so Denise, in her infinite wisdom, found an example of one, and this is just for your information to see what you think, and then perhaps we could derive something like this pretty inexpensively with minimal pain. I'm sorry, it starts right off.
Oh dear.
Hi, I'm
Is it
Tammy
two?
Smith. I'm a
Thank
special
you.
education teacher, and I live in Ann Arbor, and I'm on the Public Art Commission.
My name is David Zinn. I am a street artist and commercial artist living in Ann Arbor. Been living here my whole life. Drawn stuff for very useful purposes and sometimes just on the walls.
My name is John Katarski, and I'm an educator.
My name is Colleen Crawley. I've been a resident of Ann Arbor since 1998, and much of that time has been spent working right here at Motawi Tile Works. I'm a project designer and have been for about 16 years.
My name's Chip Smith. I'm a city council member here in Ann Arbor.
My name is Connie Rizzomo Brown, and I am a designer. I spend a lot of time working with different abilities in doing residential design and also working with facilities with memory care. And lately, something that's near and dear to my heart, a lot of outdoor places.
I'm David Esau. I'm an architect with a firm called Cornerstone Design, a small firm that does a mix of commercial and residential projects. Have a bit of a specialty in accessibility for people with disabilities, both commercial and residential projects.
My name is Allison Buck, and I am the operations manager at the Ann Arbor Film Festival. And I am also co-chair of the New Leaders Arts Council of Michigan.
I joined the Art Commission because I wanted to be able to get more art to more people.
I do have a desire to serve our community, and this is one way that really matches up my talents and my expertise.
I really view myself as not somebody who has a great deal of background or expertise in art per se, but in public decision making and how we incorporate that art into our everyday lives. I think I can offer a great deal of insight. As an architect, I have a background in buildings, so trying to figure out where to put public art. I think I'll have a bit of expertise in that area. I'm very organized in terms of helping to get a board or commission working in the same direction and understanding their charter and all of that. So I think I'll be helpful in that way as well.
I joined the Art Commission because I support public art in Ann Arbor. I wanted to make sure that it continues and flourishes, and thought that I could help in that aspect. I've been involved on the other side of public art projects when I used to work at the Arts Alliance, and so I think I bring a unique perspective that way. And I also am connected with the overall arts community of Michigan through my New Leaders work, and so wanted to be able to bring that network to Ann Arbor as well.
Obviously, since I make most of my art with tools that Crayola stamped on the side, I'm not really a high artist. I'm literally a low artist. And I think it would be useful, always useful for people to embrace the idea that art is many more things than we realize. It's not only things that are in frames on walls and galleries and museums. And it's actually even more, I don't want to use the word impactful. Let me go back. That yes, art in galleries is important and good to have, but the art you see walking to work one day when you didn't expect to see art is probably going to have a much bigger effect on that day of your life than the 500th painting that you saw when you went to that one museum once because you happen to be in that town and that's what people do. So I think the more of that we can get, the more of a ripple effect there will be of creative energy in this community. And I want to help with that.
Thank you. So how long was that? Was that like
Almost 4 minutes.
So almost 4 minutes, and there was a ton of information in there. Obviously, it was as good as it was because of the content of the people, but it did give you a sense of what they did and why they did it. What were you gonna say? I saw you.
I'd say if we were to make a similar video, would we be able to use more modern font and music choice?
I think that the font would be within our purview to determine. So we could pick our own font. Yes.
I would suggest that for the background, since we are not artists and they are showing all these things, I think the brochure, because it has a mission, it has all the statements, what we are doing, so people can see it behind each one of us. So you don't have to go and rehash what the mission and the vision of the commission is going to be, because the brochure will address that.
Or
so
you could have the
one idea as a background.
So this was a discussion item, not an action item, but what do you guys think about, so obviously everything is open, right? You could have everyone against a similar background. You could have people against backgrounds that reflect who they are or why they are on the commission, or what they do outside of the commission and what their point of view is and what they bring to the commission. We could have better music. No music. You could change the font. But what you saw were, you didn't see one person talking for 90 seconds. You saw different snippets of people that really showed who they were and what they did and why they cared about what they were doing. I think that's probably important for us to get out. More arts inclined people in this group might have some influence on how we get that message out, but I think that content is the most important thing, us saying who we are and what we do and why we're doing what we're doing. Do you all like the idea? You don't like the idea?
I don't mind the idea at all. I think it's a great idea. Who did that? Was that done by CTN?
Probably.
No,
No, so they got an outside,
that was the chair of the Public Art Commission.
okay.
Who made it?
Who made it, yes.
Okay.
I would just say that's, sorry.
No, go ahead,
Just say
please.
that, they're probably the only one that has one of these. I mean, I think it's terrific that they did this, yeah.
Look high and low.
Yeah, I bet you did. But typical that they, would think of something creative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will just say Ali Ramlawi is now, that's kind
Yeah,
of old
that's
because Chip,
Pretty
That one
dated.
is old.
yeah, it's dated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my concern. I think it's a great idea, but I think it would become dated after a year because we have some people rolling off after a
is.
year, and then what happens? But CTN would be a great group to do it, and also
They could cut us out and replace us.
right. That's another thing.
Easily.
But there's a
Yank one
group
out,
of
take
students
one
at
in.
Skyline High School also in their CMPP program, which basically is a communications and media program, and part of the responsibility of those students is to find projects and to do community-based projects where they do a PSA, which is basically what this is, right?
Yeah.
And so I know they're already in this semester, but maybe next semester somebody might want to take on that group. So,
I'm not sure I like the way this was introduced actually. it got boring after a while. I mean, if we had 4 or 5 people say who they are and what they do, what they care, but then it become too many saying the same thing pretty much.
There's a lot more of us than there are them, it
That
seems
was
like.
my reaction. And because they do art, it's easy, and visually art is easy to represent. So we want to think if we to do, from my perspective, if we to do something like this, is to explain to the whoever, number one, we want to say who's our audience and who's going to look at it. And if we are going to show it to the people outside this community, I mean, what's the point of doing it? Who is going to, then that will determine the message, actually. The audience should determine the message. And I think that people don't know we exist and don't know what the commission is all about. So from my perspective, it should be explained what we do. We can talk about it as individuals if we want to, so they know our faces and who we are, but to focus on what the mission of this, why this commission is created, and how people can get in touch with us, and something like that. More because we're very new. Maybe 5 years from now, we will have a totally different way to look at this video.
Is it something maybe we could ask folks that come out to the next community meeting what they would like to hear from us? You know, is it, maybe it's
That's a
one
good idea.
video that explains who we are, and then maybe it's individual videos of, you know, a string of 30 seconds who each one of us is.
The
or
process
something
of
with-
filing a complaint, the process of coming to
We could
any
have
of
our own
those things.
channel.
Right, exactly right. So yeah, I think that's a great idea to ask at the next outreach meeting and see if people come up with suggestions. Because we don't have to commit to something today, we just have to say,
No, we
this is
don't.
something we want to pursue,
And
correct?
because we don't have much behind us, it's harder to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If like we have done enough work, then you can give example of the work we do. We haven't done enough of our core work.
Well,
So-
we could do an initial introductory video, which wouldn't require us to do a lot of work, just so the community would know who we are, and we can find a way to make it a lot more dynamic and engaging. Always room for improvement. I think that if we consulted with people that are experiencing this, it could be great.
So just something to think about.
Yes.
And we can always, so the city webpage that we have is not the most dynamic. It's very hard to find, and we are going to live with that. However, we can put more content on there than what there is. So we could certainly put something like that on there, but we can certainly use it. You know, DeAndre's got a 3-minute video clip. He can show it at the beginning of whatever, every time, or when we go out and do stuff. And so it might have different purposes or usefulness. We definitely need how to file a complaint probably everywhere we go. And that's probably part of the message that we need to get out all the time. And so, you know, that on our webpage now we have that. It just isn't very beautiful, and it's not very, the graphics are terrible.
Sure.
So something to think about. So you guys can think about if you can poll the public when you go, all the times that you go out. I know you've got a lot of things scheduled, and determine whether that's something that might be useful for us.
Yeah. Question. Do we know who is going to be the new commissioner, who is going to replace?
Not
No,
yet.
not at the
We
present
don't-
time, I
we
don't
don't
know.
So we're, yeah, so that's not on the agenda, but we need to find a person, and the HRC has applications of people who applied in the past, but also the opening went out on the open seats for boards and commissions, and a couple of people have applied, I think. And so, one way it could work is that we could look over some of those applications and propose them to our council liaisons and give them a couple of suggestions of people who we think might meet some gaps in our group.
My opinion is.
Hammond, can you please speak louder?
Yeah, my opinion is we would like to have somebody from the Latino community, because we don't have representation of that. And I think that would be an added bonus to the dynamic and the diversity of the group.
Is this not decided by us?
No, but as
Something for us to consider.
as preference, we would like to be inclusive and have more people from members representing the diverse community that we have.
So how do you make your point to the city?
Okay, so, subsequent to Ms. Stevens stepping down, there were some emails exchanged amongst myself, Councilmember Lowy, Councilmember Grand, and I guess that's it, because Councilmember Ackerman was initially appointed to this committee and was replaced by Councilmember Ramlawi. So the representatives, the council representatives on the Human Rights Commission, this committee, and the mayor. This will be a mayoral appointment and recommendation to City Council. We had a short list of nominees when we recommended all of you. And so we still have the short list because we had, I mean, there were like 60 applications. And so I know I did anyway, checked the short list. And I don't know, frankly, where this stands now, but there were some good applicants out there who, you know, filled out their applications fully, were very interested, and this work was done in concert with the Human Rights Commission at the time, and so they have all those applications still, and none of the names, we had numbers for all of you, so that it was done in a way to
Like blind. Were you blind to
done
us?
more, yeah, thank you. And we wanted to protect, you know, the information that was provided all of us. And so I have not discussed this with, Councilmember Ramlawi is the liaison to the Human Rights Commission. So I don't know what discussions have occurred there, but, and it's also been reposted, like with all openings for all boards and commissions in the city. And I don't know what's come in the way of those applications. We have a system that council can access to see who's applied for what board or commission, and that is restricted to council access to protect people's, you know, addresses, all of that information, kind of information.
I mean, I think we need to talk with the mayor, obviously.
Yeah,
as well.
we do.
So I had a conversation with the mayor
Yeah.
about that as well. I'm sorry, you go.
Yeah, so based on some of the feedback I got from the public in our community outreach meeting, a lot of them expressed, and this is all public information everybody already knows, the issue with the lack of transparency in the previous appointments of some of us. Mm-hmm. And I know that we had a commissioner step down previously in the non-CAMA board. So just advocating for the public at this point, let's be sure to be transparent about mm-hmm. how the next appointment is going to work. I understand it's a mayoral appointment, so if he needs to report out or if council needs to report out, but let's be sure that we're transparent with the public and how this next commissioner is going to be appointed.
Mm-hmm. And so what he suggested to me was that we look at some of the people from the previous list, we look at new applicants, but also he suggested soliciting some, finding some qualified applicants to fill gaps that we may perceive we have, because as we work together, we can see what some of those gaps are pretty well. And that we then present to you guys some viable options that you can then determine whether you want to put before the whole council to vote on. And then that way, it's a little more transparent. We have some ability to have some input in the process. And we're going to pull from some of the people that you guys had on your short list, but also people who've applied since. Like some of the people who are on the short list are no longer interested in serving. And so,
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
yeah, so I was also able to collaborate with HRC, so I've been having conversations back and forth, because for us, having lack of an 11th member for 2 months has been pretty big. And so we'd like to get a person up and onboarded. We feel like Anand came on and we didn't even know you were coming, and so she just jumped in, just jumped in the water. We didn't even have anything for you. We didn't have, here's all the documents we've looked at before. And so we'd like to have a new person to be ready for them. And hopefully we'll be able to do a retreat. And so we'd like to have a new person before we do that, so that we can all sort of come together as one group. So we'd like to sort of work on it that way, and then make sure that way is a little bit more transparent. There's a little bit more thinking about, are there groups that need to be represented, or skill sets even that we might need that we don't have, and how can we sort of attack those, and then come up with some good options for you guys to vote on. And so we should be working on that process, and we'll communicate about that. And so we should all sort of be looking, if we're able, if we know people who might have the time, the willingness to train, the availability to do things outside of this meeting. So obviously you guys know it's not just a 2 hours a month job. We're doing stuff multiple times a week, and so does somebody have that ability to do that? And it's not as simple as sort of looking at how they work, because you work full time, I work full time, but we find the time to do these things in the interim. So there are a lot of considerations, and I think you guys have a really good idea of what those considerations are, and where we might have gaps, whether those are skill gaps or representative gaps, identity gaps. And so that is something that we will be pursuing. Since it's on the table now, any other thoughts on that?
If I could just interject, because I do wear dual hats in this case as a liaison to both the commissions, as responsible for the appointment. I think what rocked this commission hard was the fact that the person who left the commission was the chair. And that's what really was a gut punch to the momentum that it was having. So, but I'm on 10 different boards and commissions, and I can tell you, you don't have all members present very often, to be honest with you. The normal is to have 1 or 2 vacancies for people not present. I don't necessarily like that. I go to all mine. I've been to all my assignments. But I think it's just my 2 cents, again, non-voting, but
I think it's
you
tough.
see this a lot in commissions and boards,
right?
Where you don't have all
11
people or 8 or a full house.
And I know HRC is struggling with that now.
And so I just caution, we need to continue. I think Rashad said it a while back, cook while we eat, or eat while we and I kind of like that, but where we continue to look to fill that vacancy, but at the same time continue with the work that there's a lot of work in it. We appreciate it. So just
I think no worries. I think we definitely are eating while we cook, but also I think one of the differences in this commission and several others is that we're just getting up and running.
Yeah.
So we have been highly effective for 2 months with 10 people, and most people have been really interactive and doing work. However, if we're going to have 11, we need to have 11 and get all 11 on the same page. And once the commission is established and there's a core group of people who know what they're doing, people could flow in and out. And we know terms will change too, right? Terms will expire, and so there will be turnover. However, I think one of the challenges with us is that because we are founding this, and we have to get it on its feet, and we have to leave it in a place where it can sustain itself as new people come or as there are absences. If we're going to get a new person, we're still at a place where we are still doing, kind of commission orientation. So we like to get that new person in if we're going to have a new person, and we know we will. So we'd like to get them going as soon as we're able and get them sort of integrated into the group.
Well, it's good to hear the urgency, because we haven't met since, I think, before that. That was the last time we met.
Oh, right.
It seems like forever.
I think you're right.
Although I've seen you guys all the time.
Because, and the minutes reflected the chair was.
Right.
Yeah, so
Robin.
it's the first time we've met since, so it's good to hear the
Right.
feedback, the commission. I think we talked about how we wanted to pursue it. We said we want to wait and wait and see approach, listen to what the commission says. And I'm glad to hear what you had to say about what are the things you're missing as a group? What kind of, now that we're together? And I think that's really important to factor that into the decision.
Yeah, and I will say, even Kareen's leaving,
Huge.
Right, so not the chair, but, there's some transition, and we know there'll be transition. I think we've all worked in places where there's transition, and so that's fine. But we'd like to do as little retraining as possible. So we'd like to get somebody in, get everybody up to speed, and then we'll be on the same page as people begin to transition off and on. And so that's our hope. We're gonna work on it hard. We've already started working on it. You were talking about a Latino person. We don't have any LGBTQ representation now.
Yeah.
There's some skill sets that we could use too. Lots of boards or commissions come up with a list of skills that they'd like to have, and they keep thinking about those as people roll off and roll on. You're not necessarily looking to replace a person, but you might be looking to build some skills in that, we'd like someone who could do this, someone who could do that. So that's kind of great.
May I just?
Go ahead.
I would just say that the group of us who got together and reviewed all the applications, and the HRC also, they did an exhaustive job in terms of organizing all the applications, and I mean there were so many as you all know, but and then ranking the applicants, and then we coordinated that with our own reviews, and we were looking, the goal was to create, and I think I can speak for all of us by saying this, that we wanted a balanced group to represent all communities. And so now knowing that we are looking for replacements for Kareen and Robin, I think that is also something we're not overlooking in terms of the skill sets they brought, because they were part of this whole balance that we were trying to achieve with this group, and they had various skills that now we don't necessarily have perhaps, and so that was part of our thinking as well. And so when we created this short list, and I'm sending a note to the mayor to update him on this discussion, and just to confirm that we all need to be working together on this. So I've got you on here, Ellie.
I know you do.
Yeah. So I just think we need to circle back and basically regroup, and work together. And because I think, obviously there's no question that getting two good people to join us as soon as possible.
Just one.
Oh, right, sorry.
Unless you know something we don't.
Yeah, no, not replace Kareen. I was just saying that we went through that process once. And I'm here.
Mine is a terrible thing to lose.
So we'll have to do this one more time right now.
You were the top of our short list, needless to say.
But the process will be good for the next time.
You can see how good our short list is, yeah.
But the process will help for the next time, so that'll be.
I mean, it was, we're taking all kinds of factors into consideration.
All right, so.
Residency, gender,
Yep.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so this is something we'll be working on and thinking about, and HRC has been very helpful in this process and getting feedback from the mayor, and so we will start working on this and loop everybody in. But as you think about gaps in talent, gaps in perspective, gaps in representation or identity, definitely shoot those emails to me as soon as you are able, so that when we start looking at these people, we could think about, this would be good to have that we don't have, kind of thing. And then in terms of old business, I just wanted to update on Mr. Birdsong, who came and presented himself at our last meeting, which is a long time ago in August. And he talked about a trespass issue. And we sort of sent him away because he mentioned that he had been told to go to the HRC, and at first it seemed as if perhaps he was just at the wrong meeting. However, when he talked about trespass, it also seemed that perhaps he was making a police complaint. And so later, a number of us felt that perhaps we should not have sent him away, that that was inappropriate, and that we sent a message perhaps that people could not come and make a complaint at the meeting. So I wanted to report out on that. He did go to HRC, and HRC investigated his complaint. He did not have a trespass complaint against the police. It was, in fact, not in our purview. I mean, it had an issue with a private location, and his trespass was with them. They went out and investigated and resolved it with Mr. Birdsong. So I just wanted to kind of update. I don't know if anybody else felt odd or bad about that, but I know I did, and so I wanted to know what happened, and were we neglecting our responsibilities, and it turns out we were not. But we do want people to understand that they could, in fact, come and make a complaint, and we would not turn them away. So just wanted to kind of update on that. The NACOL conference update, if you were there, you know what happened. If you weren't there are materials that we have. This was a duplicate, sorry. HRC is on the agenda twice, my apologies. So I just skipped it and went on to old business. The NACOL conference update, the update is only that we have a large volume of materials from the conference. Every session that we attended had PowerPoint slides that they gave us for download. So we are going to download them, not every single one, and we're not going to overwhelm everybody, but we are going to download them and share them so that everybody knows what everybody else knows. Even if you weren't able to go to the conference, can you read about how to decipher police body cam video, for example? How you can tell when a frame has been deleted, things like that. And so the update is mostly just to let you know that we'll be downloading and disseminating PowerPoints from those, notes from those, but they're also readings. So there are suggested readings that civilian oversight commissions need to be familiar, with which we need to be familiar to be competent. And so we're going to start downloading those things and distributing them to everybody. If you have a preference for paper versus electronic, do people prefer things on paper?
We can print them.
It'll be a lot.
It's a lot.
Or electronically. I can send everything electronically. I'll try to do them thematically though, so that it won't just be coming at you all the time. But maybe just for the next little bit or so, expect to get some things that we should all pay attention to, and things I'll need to be reviewing that I won't remember even though I was in the session, but so that all of us can get on the same page. There are a lot of training materials on their website as well. So there are case law with which we need to be familiar, for example. And so Denise is going to start disseminating that out to us, and so just kind of a heads up on that. Public safety training update. Several of us on different nights have done use of force training with the police. You did it before us. You went to the police department and sat in, and I know you're, what? You did.
October 1st?
It was
You
the
talk about when you
academy
said
training.
Yes.
Is that the training you talk about? What did you call it? Public safety training?
Use of, yes.
And it went over the use.
Yeah, so that's one part of
That
public
was one
safety
part.
training.
Right. Yeah, there was a part 2 that we didn't
None
get
of
a
us
chance
did.
to
We didn't
do.
do it either.
So
we
that
didn't do
would
the
be
model
set up at some
simulation.
point.
I know there were
Right.
different reasons on different
Right.
days.
Public safety.
So we will eventually do that, but I want to keep track, not this second, but just saying it out loud, keep track of who has yet to do what kind of training so we can make sure that everybody has experienced the same thing. If you haven't yet done that use of force training,
Use of force training.
so that was the one talk that you, when they show videos and they talk about the continuum of force and how they make those decisions.
Yeah.
It's actually public safety. Is that what really
Threw you off, I apologize.
threw me off? Yeah.
Right,
That's
and then,
me. Yeah, we did.
ride-alongs with the police,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
police
we did.
simulation
Yeah, I remember that.
at Washington,
We did it,
nobody's
yeah.
done yet, so
We
I just
did
wanna
it.
make sure everybody gets
We
it
did
done.
part 1, we were supposed to do part 2, and we didn't go through that.
And we didn't either
None of
on
us
our night
did,
too.
yeah.
Thanks.
And
If
you
I-
were with us, and you were with us.
Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate that this was offered and organized, and I know Deputy Chief Osberg and Chief Cox and other officers spend a lot of time with the group I participated with Lisa and Francis and
Denise was with us.
and yeah, Jude.
Jude was there.
Yeah,
Body
we were there
tag,
several hours
coordinates,
last
coordinates.
week, and that was one part. The other part is this use of force exercise, if you will. It's a role play, and it's provided at the lab at Washington Community College. And I've done it previously, and I highly recommend it. I've done it. It was offered to council members, and this was before Councilmember Remlowey was elected. So I don't know
I
if
miss
that's
all the fun.
sorry.
Did I miss all the fun?
Yeah. It's I think an especially important exercise for this group to. I mean, I just couldn't commend it enough to participate in, and it's nice that we're being offered this opportunity. So I know when I did it, there were, because it takes some effort to, walk everyone through and set up the lab and schedule it. So,
So that's
I think
upcoming.
if you could get a couple groups to do this.
Yeah, so everyone will be scheduled to do it. Even if you haven't done part one, you can do part two. They will get back with us with when their simulation is available, and so everybody will get a chance to do it. No questions about that. And I'll be just checking in with everybody to see which things you've done, which things you've yet to do that might be informative for you.
Do we know how long that time will be at Washington Community College? But I mean, when we met, and thank you, Deputy Chief Forsberg, for being there as well. And it was a 5-hour meeting.
Yep.
I mean, all the
Yeah.
time,
Ours
all the
Ours
time.
was very long.
Ours was
it-
5 hours
5
as
hours,
well.
yeah.
I know
Very.
they were thrilled to spend it with us though.
Um,
Just thrilled.
And how long should we anticipate for the WCC?
Jason, can you answer that question? How long does Milo usually take?
I think 2 hours.
Yeah, that's when I did it. It was about 2 hours.
Okay.
Right, and so that'll happen at
Yeah.
the police academy.
I saw
out at
Corey
Washington.
today at lunch. I mean, he stopped in.
Yeah.
So that's upcoming, but I just want to just let everybody know I'll be checking in with you to see who's done what. I know none of us have done that simulation yet, but we will all have the opportunity to do that. And then ride-alongs if you want to. I did a ride-along with community engagement, which was informative. However, I'm going to do a different ride-along. I'm going to do 2 different ride-alongs because I'd like to see some different things. So I'd like to go out with the drug team and look at their behavioral testing for people driving under the influence, for example, and go out on another team as well. So I'm going to do a couple different shifts. So I'm going out in the night, in the day, and that's certainly available if you haven't done a ride along. You can think about what kind you might want to do because it's different. If you go on a football Saturday versus if you're at 3 a.m. versus I was out at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or something. So very different. Whatever you think your perspective might want to be. Sometimes there are people who might be recommended. We know sometimes that how would you say, that maybe everyone isn't so happy to be stuck with us, but everyone has been super cordial and professional. But if there's a specific kind of ride-along you want to do, then if you let Denise know, she will find the appropriate person for you. And the police department has made themselves readily available to accommodate whatever kind of request you have. So I'll just be checking in to make sure if you haven't done one and you want to do one, that you get on books and you can go at any time, 24 hours a day.
Because I did. I went from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and it was great to see, and it was a Friday night, so it was great to see what the city is like at that time and who's functioning in the city, what's going on. I mean, we're on Stadium Boulevard at about 1:45, and there's no other car on the road. I mean, the neighborhoods are silent, they're dark. Then we went to South U, which was an entirely different environment. We got out of the car, we were outside Charlie's at about 1:30 as people were letting out and going home. So you really get to see a different city depending on what time you go.
And where.
And where
Yeah.
you go. And what's going on in this.
And what's going on. And the officer that I had was great. He showed me how they write reports, how he took assignments. It was very informative.
So just so that note was just to let everybody know, I'll be checking in just to make sure that everybody gets what they need from all of the police training offerings that are available to us. So at least 3 different types of things that people can do. And they really you really can go out anytime that fits your schedule. There are different shifts going at different times. Last but not least, for old business, before we get reports from committees, we have a logo development conversation. We talked about, there was a very casual mention that perhaps we have elementary school students design a logo for, do you have that slide?
Yes.
Is it elementary?
Yeah, it was very briefly mentioned in August. There was no resolution to do so. There was no conversation. There was a little conversation about it. However, I am not sure that that seems an appropriate use of children, and we probably need a logo that is professional, if you're going to have it on your business cards and or your brochure, but of course you don't need to wait on this to do what you do. So here are some examples of some civilian oversight logos, and we need one for lots of different purposes. This is NACOLS, so they are not a civilian oversight group, they are the oversight of oversight groups. This is from Cleveland, and this is from Chicago. You see, right? You see the different use of the scales here. Chicago's is interesting because they have some of their values behind their logo: independence, transparency, timeliness. I think integrity, transparency, and timeliness. Right in Chicago.
And their
right.
skyline.
And the skyline, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, so those are just ideas. We do need a logo, and we need probably a logo that is professional in nature, and so it might be good to engage kids in some other kind of way, but probably not asking children to draw designs for police oversight, unless someone feels strongly that we need to ask children to do that. Francis,
but you know, they might, if you want to engage young people. I mean, as I work with the Skyline, they have a very advanced. It's high school. Their last year in high school, and it's kind of communication department, and they have very advanced. And they do every year these short movies about individual in the community who had contributed, and they show it at the theater, Michigan Theater. So I know one guy who does their programming. I don't know how long. If we go that route, it has the advantage work with the community, but it's a very slow route. You work with their time. So if we don't we want it sooner than later, then we will hire somebody professional.
The other option too is that I was thinking, when we see the video of the Arts Commission, if there's folks affiliated with the Arts Commission, that we go from one commission to another commission to try to work together and see if they have some kind of assistance. Maybe they can help us.
I have reached out to the Public Art Commission, and I spoke with Deborah and Benita, and they also said to talk to Kim Mortson, and give your design, your ideas, and they will help incorporate what kind of look and logo you would like on a timely basis.
So yeah, I was at the Arts Commission meeting, and we last met after we last met a couple months ago, and I said, this commission is looking for some help in getting a logo design.
Oh, great.
And whether they would send out, feelers, or if they were interested, help this commission out with that process. So it's been a while since we've met, so I almost forgot about it. But that's where that's coming from.
That's awesome.
And even like the Washington Arts Alliance, it's a whole network of artists, and
we work close with them.
Yeah, and that might be a group to reach out to.
Washington Art Alliance.
The Arts
so
Alliance.
Deb Mexicott was the one on the Arts Commission. Deb Mexicott, who was you know, someone who you can believe when she says she's gonna do something, so, you know, definitely follow up with her if, that is something that's worth looking at.
Any other thoughts about that? All right, so we have committee reports. And Commissioner Evans, did you, can you give us a report on budgeting and, woo?
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
In regards to old business, did we look at the calendar for 2020?
No, Lisa just skipped right over that. My apologies. It's in your packet. Go ahead.
Okay, these are the dates that I have booked for the 2020 calendar year. The first Monday in January, or the Monday, January 27th, is going to take place, the meeting is going to take place at CTN, and I put the address. We're still waiting for confirmation for CTN in February. We won't know that until November, but the other dates all the way until November have been booked. I can't book December of 2020 because that window is not open. I can only book from now to until November of next year.
Denise, excuse me, are those meetings in this room or where are they at?
Yes.
The ones on
Here
the
in the
Tuesdays?
basement.
Good,
Yes.
great.
Except for January and February.
Great.
Denise,
Yes.
just two questions. For March and April, I believe the 26th is a Thursday for 2020.
We just had that conversation.
And then April, that's a Sunday.
Record for that.
Oh, you're, I think it's even Easter.
March 26th.
26 is a Thursday.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at before this time.
Now, it looks this way now because I might not have an available spot at that. When I looked at the calendar, maybe 6 o'clock in the basement was not available.
19th
But
is a Sunday.
I can change that.
So are these supposed to be all Tuesdays?
It's supposed to be all Tuesdays.
Is this supposed
Sorry
to be
about
all the third or fourth Tuesday, or is it just jumping around?
No, I set for
So we'll
my
just-
January and February are dates that were selected previously. So I'm looking at the second, trying to get the second Tuesday is less congested.
But so March
So
would,
I have to go back and spotlight March.
And April.
And April.
That's a Sunday.
Okay, I'll correct that.
I would just say, in terms of a Monday meeting, it's likely, it's not, council meets the first and third Mondays, as you know, but, in the months of January, February,
Work session.
yeah, we usually, I would be, surprised if we did not have a council working session that
I
night.
would be happy, but.
Because, I mean, this is when because that's when we're, starting, I think budget presentations, that sort of thing. And usually we meet every Monday in January, February. Yeah, it's a busy time. So, I mean, you're fine to meet, but in all likelihood, I'm guessing that Councilmember Malawi and I could not attend that January 27th meeting.
So please just review it, and if you want any changes, these are the ones,
I'm also concerned that it just jumps around. We got Tuesday, Thursday. I'm not sure what day.
I think they'll all be
These are set-
Tuesdays.
They'll all be
they'll all
Tuesdays.
just fall for today.
And we talked about having some consistency so that the public would understand when we met and when.
I think those are just typos. We do expect them to be
So
Tuesdays
we're
every time.
jumping around from like the third Tuesday to the fourth Tuesday to the second Tuesday to the third Tuesday.
I think they're all third Tuesdays.
Yeah, it looks
I
like
just
they're
looked.
I was trying
They're
for
all
third
third
Tuesday because
Tuesdays.
they're available.
After you fix those two dates, it looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
all
I
The
think
other
we'll be
dates
okay.
were already preset.
Right.
to
So
go
January,
to
February are already
CTN.
given to us.
So I just want to make sure
Yeah,
we're
Okay.
third
we're
Tuesday.
But I'm
consistent
going
with
for
that,
third Tuesday.
with that consistency.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
sure.
No worries. And thank you, Commissioner, for directing us back to that.
So
They are
other than
the third.
the first meeting, which is going to be at CTN, other meetings will be here?
Yes, in the basement. That's what you voted to move here, so.
And one of the things that we'll just keep in the back of our mind is making sure that if we collaborate, if we choose to have a joint meeting with HRC, that we're in a space that can accommodate all of us. Okay, now, out of order, but work plan, budget reports. Are you all the budget committee? What is the name of your committee? Are you the money committee? What are you? The financial committee?
I
The
think the term we used not last month, but in August was the budget committee.
The budget committee. All right. One of the more important committees.
So this report will be brief as we're just getting started with our work. During our August meeting, it was myself and Jude Walton, who's out of town and could not be here and extends her apologies. And one of the things that we have discussed, because we've had 3 telephone conversations now in regards to the particular budget committee, is that, as was shared, that we are cooking and eating at the same time, and so we are just now starting our work, as well as the fact that of all of the 50-plus boards and commissions that the city has, that this is one that is, has allocated funds for the work that it does. And so we are sort of starting from scratch in some ways. One of the questions that kind of led to where we are now is the decisions that have been made in regards to the budget, in regards to this particular committee and this commission, when it came to the number of individuals who were sponsored to go to NACOL. And I know that that was sent out for individuals, but it was shared to us from the city administrator, if I'm not mistaken, that it had to be limited in number for this particular committee because our budget did not sustain for everyone to go. So one of the questions or concerns that we shared in our conversations was that in future budgets, as we sort of plan for that all of the members of the commission to be able to go to either the NACOL conference or some other type of off-site conference that will help us with the work that we do. There was questions that we had also shared on September the 16th. I was not able to be there, but Ms. Denise was very efficient in setting up a meeting with
Tom Crawford.
Tom Crawford, and it was Kim Busselmeyer there at
Yes,
that meeting.
correct.
They shared the information. Oh, awesome. They shared the information in regards to the budgeting process for the city, the disbursement of funds for the different commissions and how that works. And the information that was sent to us, Commissioner Walton and I did have a chance to review it. Some of it was applicable, and others of it I think was more generic in the context of just what the city sends out in the context of finances. One of the things that both the original, I shouldn't say the original, the task force that preceded the work that we do here, as well as the ordinance, speaks to contracts, which might even include legal advice as far as securing outside, I wouldn't say an independent attorney, but independent counsel to help in the work that we do as we move forward. And while it's been 6 months since our inception, what Commissioner Walton and I also talked about, that there was years of work by the task force that was completed that brings us to where we are. The context of the budget which they developed included it was very imaginative in a way, that a very positive way, for members of the public to be able to engage with the work that we do here, everything from transportation to childcare, and it was a very large and robust budget that was sort of trimmed down in context. And of course, there are money constraints, which we all understand, but maybe there are ways that we can think outside of the box in regards to making certain that that the community is engaged and informed, whether it be attendance to the meetings themselves, whether it be through our public relations work that we do through outreach. So we are still in process. Ideally, what we'll be able to do in future meetings is that every month, after consultation with the Department of Finance, to provide an update to the Commission on where we are, the funds which have been dispersed, and how we best move forward.
And then this work plan thing. So, the work plan
Need one.
is the plan, and
Yes.
we need a plan, and this work plan sort of justifies the money that we might need for the next fiscal year that we are applying for. And people do it, so the work plan needs to reflect our goals. It needs to reflect what we need to do what we want to do, things like training, so what Commissioner Evans is talking about. So we need to be sure to communicate with Commissioners Evans and Walton the things that are important to us. Obviously, we need to discuss that as a body, but we need to make sure that that's getting communicated. So as they put together this work plan, it reflects the things that we feel are essential for our group, so that we can justify, here's why we would like the money that we would like. And so that would include, of course, training, whether that's going to NACOL or regional conferences, because one date for a conference is never going to fit everybody's schedules. Are there different ways to do that? And so we need to be very conscientious about thinking about what the goals are, and what kinds of things we might need funded, so that we know what to ask for, and how they're going to justify the budget that they put together. Francis, I know you had a question, and then Anand.
So for training too, just going a little bit beyond, looking further down the line, onboarding for new members too. So what would it cost, or what would we need for binders and things like that, as far as what types of materials we would provide to new members? All of that kind of stuff would be taken into consideration also. Is that correct? Is that, I'm hearing that correctly?
We did not discuss that in detail. But
okay.
that's obviously
theoretically, that is,
very
you
much
know,
so.
because what we're doing is we're building,
things that you've
right,
talked about.
we're building anything that's going to justify our budget.
Right, and in the beginning, the outlay is probably a little bit more. You won't ever have to do 11 of everything again, those kinds of things. And DeAndre, you have to do something about all the stuff you need for outreach. Like, I know sometimes there's a place where you want to have food and some place where you don't want to have food, and those kinds of things, and making an estimate of if you're going to do one every month, how much food you might use, things like that. We also, as a group, have to think about checks and balances. So I think we agreed with Tom Crawford on that day that that I would look at the expenditures and just sort of double check and make sure that everything that we are taking out of the budget is stuff that we knew about. And that maybe we need to have some cross checks and balances. So if the outreach committee is spending money, that someone who is not on that committee needs to make sure that those things are correct. In addition to me sort of looking at overall expenses every month. And so thinking about checks and balances and things like that. I'm sorry, Anand.
You know, my understanding is that the city decided how much is our budget, and it was $15,000. So the question is, like, we have only $15,000. No?
Well, 50, I think.
50.
There was
A little over
150, and
Actually,
then subtract administrative costs out of that, and it
63,
left
something like
about 67 or 63 or something like that this year.
Was 100 and how much was it?
150 in the beginning, and then salary and all the administrative and IT and costs
So
come
how
out
much
of
cash?
that. So 67 or
67.
62,
So
63.
if we say we have $67,000 available to us in 12 months, what's our priority? That's, I think we have to approach it that way, rather than what is our wish list and does it fit that budget. All what we have is $70,000, $67,000. So what's our priority? And I think that's warrant, you know, that we take time in one of our meeting, maybe next meeting,
Or a
if
work
we don't
session.
have that, or a work session, and say, okay, this is budget, everybody is there, and, you know, somebody, training is more important for them. We want to do workshop, we want to reach out to the community. So everybody contribute, and then we come to some kind of a consensus, should be our, because our priority first year might not be the same next year.
Correct.
Might not be the same third year, and some of us who are here today might not be with us, or, you know.
Right. So we aren't going to try to figure out how to spend this money. What we need to do is we're sort of letting, as you said, the priorities drive what we're going to ask for next time.
And I will say next time, or even if we know if you have $50,000, you want to decide what's your priority, how you're going to spend it, which is more important, and have some consensus among us. And I think that you might want to, you know, have a discussion and present to us, and then we open the door for discussion, like what is other things you want to spend money on, or what is our priority, and have the whole committee contribute to that. The whole
Yes.
So,
So
Madam
may I
Chair?
make a proposal that we have either next meeting or have a special meeting to just to dedicate it for the budget, and we basically talk about our priority and allocate, how do we allocate that funds?
Did you have a, Bonnie? did
Yeah,
you
Madam
say
Chair, I
and
think
then
it's
Mohammed?
a twofold process. We're already in a fiscal year.
Right.
So we need to figure out what we're spending now, but the long vision is the next fiscal year of the city. The work plan really has to come together for that.
Correct.
So I think we're looking at two things that sort of go together, but, you know,
Yeah.
different
And they
in a
have a
way.
time crunch
Right.
because they have a specific time by which they have to
Well,
get
we-
it to council.
So when
in their
is that,
cycle.
what
So-
is that timeline for the next work plan for the next fiscal
So
year?
you guys start looking at those in the beginning of the year, right?
So we have a budget retreat in December. It's usually like the first or second week of December, usually the first. And that's when we initially receive presentations from the city administrator and various departments. Then we receive presentations throughout January, February, March. And we receive, because it's all established by city charter, we receive the city budget the second week in April. And then also by city charter, the budget must be approved by city council by the last meeting in May for the next fiscal year. The fiscal year runs from June 1st to July 30th. So your budget is to propose a work plan and the
You say
funding.
June
It
first,
starts
July.
July 1st.
July 1st.
June
July
1st
1st.
to July 30th is the fiscal year.
July 1st.
July 1st.
Sorry,
June
30th.
July
Yeah.
1st to June 30th.
Right, you got it.
That'll
I'm
be
sorry.
short.
That's all right.
July 1st to June 30th is the fiscal year. And so we are already in this fiscal year, and the budget for this fiscal year was $150,000. And I'll just quickly, within that budget, is allocated $87,000 for personnel and related costs. And that includes, you know, our wonderful management assistant. $53,000 is designated for other services, which is defined as, you know, contracted work, basically. $1,000 for materials and supplies, and $9,000 in other charges, which may include travel.
Now, Tom indicated that they made that budget obviously before we came on, so they didn't ask us what we needed, how much for what, right? And so, is there leeway in how that gets spent? Certainly. There are documentation that we have to do, but if we spend $1,100 instead of $1,000 on
Right.
supplies, this is fine.
Right.
And so, I just, as you're listening to these numbers, understand we have about $63,000 left. The training that we did for NACOL was actually out of the last fiscal year.
So for this year, what,
63,000.
we still have 60.
About, yes.
And we have to, till June or July, between the two.
June 30th.
The end of June.
Is the end of this fiscal year.
So we have 9 months, 10 months, no,
No,
6
we have
and, how many
7,
months?
8 months.
8 months. No, we have 8 months,
Eight
right?
months until the-
I-
Yeah.
You don't need to spend it all.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
What? You don't need to.
That
spend-
doesn't
don't need to
mean you
spend it.
need to spend it all.
Listen to who's telling you that.
That's
This is the public's money, of course. This isn't ours. It's-
Right, so obviously we're
But-
gonna
Right,
waste
you
it.
public.
I'm trying to understand, if we still have 8 months for this year, we really need to sit down and say, okay, what's our priority for this year? If we have 2 months only, it's a different story, but if we have 8 months,
And
that's
then,
most of
if I
the.
can
Okay.
interrupt real quick
Wait,
here.
hold on, because Muhammad was gonna jump in there.
I think what we need is, for next meeting, we should come up with a list of things that we need to do for this year and for next year. I think one of the issues that we have is the training. For the ones who did not have a chance to go to Nicole, there might be some experts who are outside. We can bring those people in, give us
Absolutely.
presentations, open it for the members, as well as members of community who would want to come and hear what these experts are saying, whether it's in law, whether it's in budget, whether it's in functions, whether it's in how to read a report, how to analyze the report. All those things we lack. And I think if we educate ourselves first, anything we do is going to be based on like learned thing
Right.
versus haphazard stuff. We need to organize ourselves in a way that we become a little bit more versed in the activities of this committee.
And I will just say that, thank you, that the non-personnel costs were based on this group's development of a work plan. So, right, is there wiggle room within these various line items? Absolutely, as Lisa indicated. So the city is looking to this group to develop that work plan. And, right, we are well into this fiscal year. But I will just say, because this is, with this fiscal year's experiences, funding needs, how these funds were utilized will help inform, obviously this group, but also the city in terms of making a budget recommendation for fiscal year, it'll be fiscal year 21, because this is technically the fiscal year, it's called the fiscal year, it's 1920, the fiscal year 20 budget. So this is but you need a work plan for this fiscal year too.
Okay. Can we have a copy of what you just read about what's allocation?
Yes, I think we have a copy, and so Denise, if you could just send that to everybody, that'll be great. And so we have two parallel tracks, two parallel things. So the budget committee, with our assistance, has to come up with a work plan for the future, and it needs to predict
And also this year.
what we'll do, right? This year, we also need to figure out the work plan for what we're gonna do.
For this one, for the next year.
So we have two things we need to do at the same time. So we're gonna walk and chew gum, and we're gonna,
That's not that hard.
no, and we are competent to do that. But we have a deadline to some degree for the next work plan, because that is on a clock that we have to be on the correct train.
When is the deadline?
So we'll get in the queue.
There's no hard deadline.
Exactly.
There's no hard deadline. I mean, Councilmember Lum will bring a lot of amendments in May.
Well, that's our job.
But those are hard to do. I mean, once the city administrator's got his proposed budget,
We have to make a presentation though.
it's really hard to go in there and make different changes. And so I would
That's
put
our
it,
only opportunity.
But we have a
I would-
presentation we have to make, and those happen in January, February, and March.
I would put
and we
this,
have to
I
do
would
it in
put
that
urgency on your work plan and the needs for the next fiscal budget. I would put that ahead of what you're gonna do currently with the
Right now.
$63,000. And, cause you're gonna have a little bit more time with that. Both are very important. I know Councilmember Lum will probably correct me perhaps, but I think it's really important to get that information to the city administrator in a very coherent way, sometime around the beginning of the year.
I think January, sometime in January would be helpful. Again, the city administrator collects all this feedback, and then he presents, because it's the city administrator's budget, he presents the budget the second meeting to council in April, at which time
It's
that's our
pretty much ironclad.
opportunity to amend the budget. And but we don't get that shot until April. So, but he's receiving, and again, this is the only city board or commission with a designated budget, the only one. So this is also obviously new ground in that regard too. But I think if you were able to pull something together by January, sometime in January, like mid-January maybe, that would be very useful.
So I want to make sure we stay on track, because we have a couple more reports out we need to do.
So, Madam Chair, should the budget or the draft of the 2020 budget go to the city administrator for presentation to city council?
So
If it's the city administrator's budget?
yes. So it's the city administrator's budget,
Correct.
and we have to present and say, here's what we need and here's why we need it. And I had a meeting with the city administrator, and did we get some examples? Did we get an example? Okay. And so maybe it would be helpful for to get an example from which to work. Jude and I talked about this, so we might have one already. I just can't remember. I have too many papers in my life right now. And he is certainly willing to work with us having doing this for the first time. And so that sounds like a real phone.
This is
And so If a meeting is warned,
Excuse me, I did send you
an example,
I-
that's what I
I
thought.
turned
So
this
if, then would you send it to Michelle, make sure Michelle that you have, you might have just sent it to the two of us, but we did get a sample. And so, something for you to use just as a template
Right.
to think about it, but not that it's just your job, everybody needs to contribute to that. All right, so I wanna make sure we get, Commissioner Caldwell on the docket.
Okay. So, I feel like we did have a successful community outreach event at Westgate. I think it was good for our first event, a dry run sort of thing. Some of the feedback I got from the public in the meeting was that they really want to look to us for transparency. So us acting as a liaison between the city and the department, and the information that we get and disseminating that to the public. They had some different suggestions as far as sharing what we do. They mentioned possibly us making a video, how to file a complaint, introducing ourselves while we're on the commission, making like a wallet-sized card similar to the ACLU Know Your Rights card. It's also going to be a method to explain to people how to file a complaint. Another big part was maintaining the image of independence. I know that the structural function of our commission may not really be independent of the city, but maintaining that image of independence. So staying away from things that seem like promotion for city council, the city, or the police department. When we do go out to outreach events, if we do have city council members, officers, or city staff, them kind of playing the back role, and us more so being on the forefront, since we're members of the community and don't have those direct affiliations. A part of your packet is an updated copy of the brochure. There haven't been any grammatical revisions yet, but we did change formatting. We got some pictures in the placeholder position, and yeah, so Denise did bring up a point that out of the pictures we are missing a commissioner. I'm thinking once we do the grammatical revisions, we can roll these out for our community, our next community outreach event, and then whenever we find out who the next commissioner is going to be, we can update the form further. So when we initially make copies, we won't make too many of them. So the next time we can have an updated form. The next community outreach event will be next week on Thursday, 6 o'clock at the Bryan Community Center. The address is 3 West Eden Court, and there'll be opportunity for us to reach out to that region of town and start getting feedback from them as well.
I thought you emailed the flyer to everybody, right?
Yes.
To all of you. If you can send it to your constituency or help us, bring people, because, you can do the perfect meeting, but we really, what make it more perfect is when we have people. So if you can forward it, especially to people if you know people in that area, we would really appreciate it.
Ward 3.
And just, I think I did send you the email and you responded to that. It was the date on the establishment, 2018-19.
Did you send it to the Ward 3 council members? Just because they might have email lists that are larger too.
You mean
they can
this,
get it out
or
with?
the next
No,
event?
the flyer for the next.
I sent it to all of council.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime send it on to council.
No, just because all of you have your email lists that are larger too,
Yeah.
that if you send that out to your ward groups, that's huge,
Yeah, I sent it with Denise's note that said, to send it out to your group.
Okay,
So
cool.
presumably, they would also help do that.
Last but not least, in terms.
May I, on this form itself?
If you can go fast.
Yep.
Talk fast.
First, thank you very much, DeAndre. Just the in-person contact, I don't know if these have been printed already, but,
No.
So City Hall's obviously a big place, and for in-person, filing a complaint in person, you might want to note that they should do it, that the office is on the second floor at City Hall, and
And they
you have
don't
a
need a
box,
pass.
right, and forms outside where they can, turn those in.
Alrighty.
And I guess we should really decide before we go to print, which email, make sure we're definite on which emails we're using. So we have a timeline for when this might be happening. so
DeAndre,
we
give us a
can-
date. You want
Yeah.
anything from us by what date?
As far as emails,
For our final
Feedback,
email for you,
yep.
DeAndre, so
For
we
your
don't
brochure.
end up, you know.
I would say by next Monday.
Okay.
Should be the 21st.
21, okay, thank you. Okay,
So
you know
you're
what?
gonna print some
Mine's
for.
fine, so there, I'm not emailing you, DeAndre, 'cause
Mine
mine's
is
fine.
Okay.
So if you don't hear from us, then it's fine, as is.
Because an idea of mine is the fact that this is stuff that we're going to be passing out in the community.
Not in a picture.
Do we want to have our city emails or giving it to the community?
And maybe people can tell you, like, every individual can tell you which one they want to that, because I love that idea. The Ozone House has a card like that too, that we give out to kids and they give it to other kids for homework and stuff like that. And so it's a great idea. And again, a printing expenditure, right? So last but not least, let's see if we can get out of here super quickly. We may need some discussion on this one, so that's fine. But we had a social media resolution and we took comments, changes to it. So we presented it, I believe, in June, revised it in July. You guys last looked at it in August. We took in comments from different people, and here it is to vote on. If you want to take a look at it. Francis, you want to?
Can I make a motion that we, motion to move on the resolution so we can get to discussion on it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
For discussion.
Board discussion.
So this is basically, we wanted to get the resolution done way back in early summer. We had a discussion with Lisa, the Wandras, who is the public information officer basically for the city. And she just indicated that she would like us to do a formal resolution saying that we would like to have our social media accounts, which would be Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and that we would follow the, this is mainly just to get the word out, who we are, when we're meeting, things like that. We went through other examples of Chicago and what they use theirs for, and it's the same thing. It's pictures of their community outreach and what they're doing. And let her know that that's what we would be working on and using it for. It also gives each of us and our individual groups the opportunity to be able to share the information, retweet it out, get it out that way so people know we're meeting, to reach our individual groups. And so that's what this resolution is for. It also sets up that we would have 3 commissioners, at least so that then they won't expire the same year, who would monitor the accounts. And that way it leaves the account, we'll never get locked out of it, basically. A lot of groups, only one person has control of it, the person leaves the organization, and it's a nightmare to get control of your account back. So that's kind of why we're doing this too.
Question?
Yes.
So those 3 commissioners would be allowed to post on these accounts?
Right.
And they wouldn't need prior approval from the Public Information Office?
Correct.
For every tweet.
For every tweet or anything
Right.
like that? All right.
But if somebody who, like, say I don't have access to it, but DeAndre does, I could just send something to him and he
Right.
could get it out.
And so we 3, DeAndre, Francis, and I, are the social media committee at this point, and the 3 who would have access to it. And that makes sense, obviously, because DeAndre is going to be doing so much outreach and may want to, and should have very easy access. So one of the people probably should always be from the outreach committee, and can do that. But for example, we have pictures from training, we have pictures from NACOL, we have other kinds of things to let people know what we're doing. Had we had Twitter, we would have tweeted that.
Right.
Yep.
And, like last night, was it last night that we saw the picture of the owl from the police department?
PD put out a really cool picture the other
They
night.
tweeted last night.
Yeah, an owl just came up and sat on the rearview mirrors of one of the police cars, and the
kidding.
officer got a picture of it.
Wow.
And so I had it drafted. I said, I better not send it. I don't want to send the wrong, but I was ready to tweet back, be careful, he may work for the commission. But I didn't know who does your social media, and I didn't want to scare them or upset them or anything, but I thought it was really cute.
An owl?
He was really cute.
Yes, you have to check Twitter. It was cute. So that's the purpose. This is again considered a best practice by NACOL. Also allows the community to interact with us. I know we had discussion about this in July, we had discussion about this in August, but we did want to take everybody's comments in, make revisions as the comments came in, and make sure that we had a product with which everybody was satisfied.
Looks good.
Call for the vote.
Yeah. Approval.
Is there a,
You want to vote on this?
Call for the vote.
You need to vote.
yep, so if we, could we have a motion to do that?
Yeah, someone should move.
Who moves it?
And you second it? Go.
But it needs to be moved first.
Okay.
It's been moved during discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in this.
I'm so
Well, you
sorry.
actually
No, it's fine.
No. I am
Exactly.
extraordinarily.
Take the vote.
All right.
Who's in favor?
I'm sorry, what?
Who's in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we have a resolution to establish social media. Obviously, we'll start slowly. We are at 8:02. We do need to discuss one more thing. It should be quick. December holiday meeting date. There was a question.
Yes, at last meeting in August, Commissioner Santa Croce asked that to check for a date, available that's not so close to the holiday, but the only one available is December 17th as opposed to the 19th, a Tuesday as opposed to a Thursday this year. So you have to vote if you would rather come at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, December 17th, or keep the Thursday, December 19th, which was closer to the Christmas holiday.
And that one was at, from 7 to 9 p.m., I
That's
understand?
what I changed it to 6.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
So that was his request. So it's currently scheduled on the 19th, which is one of the dates that we inherited just because how things shook out for 2019.
Right.
You all have to decide whether the 19th is fine. I know you've had it on your calendars for some time, or whether you prefer to come on 17th.
17th,
That's for me.
17? Okay.
I might not be here.
On either date? Or
No, 19 I'll be here.
It's December.
Yeah, December.
Not that we're voting members, but I
on the
prefer
19th or the 17th? Or both?
17th is a Sunday.
Okay,
Of
so
December.
so either way,
Oh, sorry.
you're
Of
going,
December.
you'll be in the warm.
Yeah.
Look at the wrong one.
we have council on the 16th, just saying, it's,
Wait, we're not on the 6th, she was saying 17th.
17th or 19th.
It
yeah,
was
I'm
only
just saying,
available
like,
based
you
on
know,
time.
so it's, whatever, I'm not voting, so I'll go with the punches, but in my non-vote, I
Back to
like the
back?
19th.
Well, you have a lot of
No,
other
you like
Tuesday meetings to
Tuesdays.
attend.
The
You're
the
right.
17th, the 16th would be at 6 o'clock also,
No,
or
just
later?
Yeah, I'm sorry to
17th or
confuse you.
19th.
At
That's all that's available.
17th or 19th, I'm
I
sorry.
already had
And the
19th.
17th would be at 6 o'clock
6
also?
p.m.
The
Yes.
19th is at 6 also, I just have it wrong.
The 19th is better for me, but the 16th I could make it, I would be
17th?
late. On the
The ninth-
17th.
17th.
17th, I don't know why I keep saying the 16th.
The 19th was on your calendar.
Yeah, the 19th
Yes,
is on
so I
my
can stay with
calendar and I
you.
have it.
And
It's
so-
it's far away still from the Christmas. It's like
Okay.
Thursday.
And so if the 19th is what you guys have
Some
booked and
folks
the
go out of
19th is
town.
most convenient for you,
Yes.
we can leave it on
So
the
he asked
19th.
me to check. And that was, I
18
just
is
want to
fine.
let you
It
know
worked
that was the
for
only
me.
available.
Is there
day.
anyone else who has a problem with the 19th? Zainab is going to be vacationing no matter what date we choose.
So the 19th it is?
Does anyone have a strong desire to change?
I'm good with whatever.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I'm
All
sorry.
right, then we
I'm
should leave it
sorry
as it
well.
is, because you guys have probably worked
After
around
being
it.
6-7 hour meeting on Monday, just
I'm never here.
coming back Tuesday's a little hard.
Public comment.
We'll leave it to
I'll be
19th.
crashing.
Wait.
19th.
One thing,
Comment.
Okay.
Sorry, not public, but commission comment.
for all of you, the Muslim Community Association of Narber is having an open house on the 26th of this month from 3:30 to 7:30. There will be a tour to the Islamic Center. There will be a very brief presentation about what is Islam, and there will be lots of food from all over the world, because, as you know, Muslims are not limited to one country or so. So from probably Indonesia all the way to the U.S. and Arbor. So, no, it's 4:45 and 5:05 is just 20 minutes of presentation.
That's so oddly specific.
Yeah. I believe that there was an email that was sent or to be
Yes.
sent to the.
And I appreciate the reminder. Yes, we sent to council.
Yeah, and I think Deputy Chief and also the Chief are
And we
anyone
have a
from
new
the
deputy chief.
and the new
Yes,
one.
we do. So,
All of
Amy
you
Metzer.
are invited to come over, and for the ladies who would like to have the henna or decorating their hands. It's not something that it's different than the tattoos, because over time it goes away, so you don't have to use chemicals to remove that.
Thank you for inviting us. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment?
Could you repeat the date that you're going to have the
The-
open house?
October 26th, on Saturday, not this Saturday, the following Saturday.
Following Saturday.
Correct.
Thank you.
And
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Motion.
You actually
So
made
moved.
that.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. I'm making a motion to adjourn.
May I have your name tag?
Yes.